Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Our topic today is the research methodologies and overview. I'll begin with a quotation by Albert Einstein, who says, if we knew what it was we were doing, it would not be called research, would it? So it is a key definition about research and what we'll be doing today. It is something which people don't know. If we already know something, there can't be a research. Choosing research methodologies is the most important aspect of your research project. When we talk about research methodology springs out of the following concepts. First of all, the way we see the world. Okay, what's our belief about the world, whether the world is knowable or it is not knowable. Second, the subject area we are working for, or the subject area we are working in. That is another aspect which determines our research methodology. The specific research area, our topic of research in a particular field, and questions on which we are working on. So the type of our research questions. So these are the four areas which determine what type of research methodology we will be using. As I said, the research methodology is the most basic concept, fundamental concepts or component of your research, because it determines what type of data you will be collecting, what type of analysis you will be doing. So research methodology begins with your belief system, your assumptions, your worldview. So about the world, whether we can know and to what extent we can know the world is basically the areas which determine our research methodology. Well, some people or some researchers, especially those who have a scientific background, they believe that the world is knowable. We can understand the world. That truth is over there. If we apply the appropriate method and appropriate research question and appropriate way, we can understand and know the world. The belief that we can know the world is especially found in the sciences and some of the social sciences. And what are the basic ideas of a scientific method or of the scientists? They are usually like this. They begin with hypothesis, that you have a hypothesis, and the hypothesis is generated. That hypothesis is then tested, and some experiments are carried out to test the hypothesis. Then the results are collected and the data gathered to argue your case. And to argue your case means to prove a point. So this is the process. If you believe, according to some people who know that the world is knowable, the truth or the definite truth is over there, and if we apply the appropriate method or way of finding it, we can find it. And what is that method? It starts with a hypothesis, generation of a hypothesis. Then the hypotheses are tested by performing some of the experiments, and through the experiments the results are collected and the data is gathered to prove your argument or your case, and that is a kind of approach, one approach. So to carry out certain procedures many times, the procedures I've just mentioned, if a number of people carry out such procedures a number of times, it leads towards the reliability. And when I say reliability, that if one person or one researcher gets some results, applies a proper procedure, reaches to certain conclusions, and another researcher applies the same, reaches to the conclusion, then a number of researchers apply the same procedure and the results are consistent, then we say that our research method is reliable. The other aspect of this research is that it is replicable. It's not that one genius finds something. It is anybody who follows the procedure would reach almost the same type of conclusions. So the basic tenet, a basic postulate or point in the research is that this type of research is replicable. And this type of research is not only in educational research or in social sciences and humanities or in scientific research. It is also conducted in business or in market, especially when people launch a new product. It could be the release of new medicine or drugs or other products like new car. So research is conducted to see whether that would be useful, the product would be useful, what would be the opinion of the people about it or not. In social sciences, there is a rigorous, reliable research. In social sciences, I mean, social sciences also take into account this type of research where there is a hypothesis generated and then it is tested and the experiments are carried out and the results are collected and data gathered to argue the case, make a point. So in social sciences, this procedure or this method is rigorously followed and it is considered to be a reliable research. And especially this type of research is based on the theories of, especially one theory of behaviorism. And the behaviorism is based on Skinner and Bandura's explanations, which are based on Pavlov's experiments, especially his famous experiment on dog. And that experiment was that he trained dogs to salivate when their food was presented. So there was a ringing of a bell and a provision of the food to the dogs, and if they were done at the same time, it's a very famous experiment. So whenever there was the food was provided, the bell rang, and the dogs associated that with the food. And when even the food was not presented, only the bell rang, the dogs salivate, which means that they were conditioned, their behavior was conditioned. People are seen in the same way, behaving mechanically and in a predictable manner as do in this experiment and in other sciences. So if you have this approach that is based on behaviorism, that there is a stimulus, response, and there is some feedback, and in this way a behavior is established. And this approach has been used especially in educational research and even in language learning methods. So this approach, which actually developed into a scientific field was applied into social sciences and educational research based on the assumption or methodology which states that this world is knowable, and if we use the appropriate method or appropriate procedure and we ask the right questions, we can understand it. But there are competing positions. This position of the predictable world is not always possible, especially all the questions we ask about the world are always not predictable. For example, human interactions, perceptions, and interpretations are different. They are never the same, are definite. So this led to a revision of this one, or another approach which is based on a form of constructivism rather than predictable and proven. That you can't predict, you can't prove anything. The world is actually created or constructed by human beings. So if you believe, so there are two contesting positions, or two paradigms. If you believe that the world is definable, it is fixable, it can be proved, it can be discovered, and it can be described, so you are using an approach or a methodology which is known as positivistic research, a positivistic approach. However, if you feel that the world is not indefinable, it is interpreted, the world is indefinable, it is interpreted, it is shifting in meaning based on who says, when says, and why says, and anybody carries and adds meaning to it, then you are using post-positivistic research. So these are the two contesting approaches, positivistic and post-positivistic. Post-positivistic takes into account assumption, a philosophy about the world, and that philosophy is direct opposite to the positivistic, wherein it says that the world is indefinable. It is actually interpreted by the people, and is shifting in meaning are in a fluid, and they are changed by who says, and when says, and why says, and people add their own meanings and interpretations. They add their own meanings. Then you are following a philosophy or a worldview that is called post-positivistic research. So in post-positivistic research, we ask questions, but we never gain absolutely final answers. We have the questions, but not the definite answers. All data collected will need to be interpreted in context. We make meaning rather than discover the meaning. We understand through making links, interpreting context, and perceiving it. So everything is relative and based in a context, who says what and why. It is a kind of inductive approach, that you don't have a question in the beginning. You start with your data, and by looking at the data, you reach to, maybe at the end you reach to a conclusion. If we compare it with the other contesting, are the competing position of the positivistic, there we say that the answer is definitive and the approach is deductive. And when we say it is deductive, it means that you have a certain question and you think that there will be a definite answer, and you just test it by applying positivistic approach. So, as compared to positivistic approach, this post-positivistic approach contributes to meaning, understanding, rather than testing theory and meaning. So that is one of the fundamental differences between positivistic and post-positivistic. Post-positivistic is creating meaning, contributing, adding to the meaning, and its purpose is not to test theory or the meaning. So, what are the choices of methodology and methods available? Well, any choice of methodology or a method follows from your worldview. What do you think about world and your philosophy? What do you make sense of the world? What do you consider the world? What are your assumptions about the world? When we say that what's the difference between methodology and methods? Well, methodology is assumption. Methodology is a philosophy. Methodology is a worldview. Whereas methods are the vehicles, are the processes used to gather data. So, social scientists have a range of approaches which fall under these methods. And what are those? They are positivism, interpretivism, structuralism, postmodernism, post-structuralism, and constructivism. In a minute we'll discuss them briefly, but at this point I just want to name it that these are some of the methods available in social sciences and humanities, and they are applied by the researchers in their specific field of study. Methodology includes the following concepts in the context of a field of inquiry, in a field of your study. What is done? Number one, there is a collection of theories, concepts, or ideas. It begins with collection of theories about some of the concepts and ideas. Then it deals with different approaches. What are the approaches available? And then the critique of individual methods. Which method is the best? What are the alternative methods? So basically it is vetting and looking at different methods and then critiquing or taking one which will be the most useful or helpful in your research. Methodology is the rational and philosophical assumptions underlying a particular study rather than a collection of methods. Though it leads to and informs the methods, but it's different. It is more abstract as compared to the methods. So methods fall under methodology, or we can say methodology determines what type of method would be suitable for one particular area of study. There are certain other key concepts in research methodology, and you will frequently come across them, so it is a better place to discuss briefly some of them here. Well, one of the terms, key concepts in methodology is called ontology. Ontology literally means being in the world. So self, subjects, and how you experience and perceive yourself in the world, whether the world is knowable, whether we share the same sense of reality, solidity, or we perceive differently. Such type of issues are discussed or deal with ontology. Well, this ontology actually developed in the 20th century or early 20th century by some other phenomenologists such as Husserl and Merleau-Ponty and Jean-Paul Sartre. Each one of them debated how we experience and construct a sense of self in the world. That is about ontology. Another key term frequently used in research methodology and used in research methodology is epistemology. Epistemology is knowledge. The ways in which different disciplines construct, interpret, and represent knowledge in the world is called epistemology. In simple words, it is called the science of knowledge. Methodology is important, and you have to defend your methodology while doing your research project, and maybe at the end of the research project if there would be an oral examination. So your research methodology actually affects the research questions you ask, the kinds of research you carry out, the methods you use, the modes of analysis used on your data, and what you can argue as finding from your data. So, in other words, your methodology determines what type of research question you can ask, what kind of research you will carry out, and what method you will use, and what would be your method of analysis, or mode of analysis, interpreting or analyzing your data, and what you can argue as finding from your data. At this point, if you look at, you compare those big paradigms or worldviews, you can look at them side by side. So positivistic paradigm and post-positivistic paradigm. Positivistic paradigm is concerned with hypothesis testing. You make a hypothesis and you test it. If you compare this with the post-positivistic paradigm, that is concerned with generating theories, making theories. Here, in the first, the theories are tested. In the second, the theories are generated. Positivistic paradigm uses large samples, whereas post-positivistic paradigm uses small samples. Post-positivistic data are positivistic data are highly specific and precise. Highly specific and precise data. And post-positivistic paradigm data are rich and subjective. Positivistic paradigm produces quantitative data. Post-positivistic paradigm produces qualitative data. In positivistic paradigm or approach, there is a high reliability. In post-positivistic paradigm, reliability is low. In positivistic paradigm, there is a low validity. In post-positivistic paradigm, validity is high. Positivistic paradigm generalizes from sample to population. It works on a representative sample of the data, but it generalizes the results and findings for the whole population from where the data has been taken. Whereas in post-positivistic paradigm, it generalizes from one setting to another, from one situation to another, but there is no generalization in that large scale as it is done in post-positivistic paradigm. Well, continue with the terms which are frequently used in research methodology. Our next term is positivism. So positivism depends on belief that human society, like the natural world, is subject to fixed laws. Behavior can be determined. There is little room for choice or multiple interpretations. Means there is one definite interpretation. Positivism is associated with empiricism, behaviorism, naturalism, or the scientific research, and it attempts to attribute scientific status to social research. Another feature of positivism is positivism is most often used in research in economics, psychology, management, marketing, some health-related research, and in educational research. And positivism argues that knowledge and truth exist insofar as they can be proved. And if something cannot be proved, it doesn't exist. As compared to positivism, another term you'll come across is interpretivism. So it started with some of the isms as I discussed in the beginning. Now I'm going to explain those isms. The first is positivism, the second is interpretivism. Interpretivism says that human beings are subjects and have consciousness or a mind. They are not like the natural objects or things. Human beings are subjects and have consciousness or a mind, and human behavior is affected by knowledge of the social world which exists only in relation to human beings. That is basically constructed by the human beings. So human beings are subjects and have consciousness or a mind, and human behavior is affected by knowledge of the social world which exists only in relation to other human beings. Interpretivism states that the mind interprets experience and events and constructs meaning from them. The mind interprets experiences and events and constructs meaning from them. Meaning does not exist outside the mind and the agreement of human being. So meaning is created by the mind and in agreement with other people. So in simple words, the meaning is arbitrary. It is agreed upon by the human beings and it is created by human mind, and that is interpretivism. Next term we'll discuss today is constructivism. Briefly, what is constructivism? Constructivism is based on similar beliefs as interpretivism, and it believes that human beings construct knowledge and meaning from experience and relationships between things, people, event. constructivism, as the name indicates, that knowledge is constructed and meaning is given to the experience by interacting between the things, people and events. Another term in post-positivistic approach is structuralism, and some of the key features of structuralism is structuralism claims that all knowledge is historically and socially contingent. All knowledge is historically and socially contingent. So what's the meaning of contingent? It means that it is based on its context and it is mediated by power relations, law and language. It is mediated by power relations in the society and law and language. Structuralism states that it is objective, rational laws inform human activity. Objective, rational laws inform human activity. The mind, language, behaviors, identity formation and interpretations. And post-structuralism, like structuralism, sees language as divorced from things and events. Relations agreed on by human beings, or they are not agreed on or upon by human beings, in a context where there are no stable meanings, reality or laws. So post-structuralism emphasizes that language doesn't have meaning. The meaning is given to the language by the people. It's arbitrary. And the meaning is created in a context, and also that there is no fixed or stable meaning of anything. There is no stable meanings, there is no reality, there are no definite laws. All knowledge is constructed, interpreted in a system of relations, interconnected with different systems. Another key approach or a method is postmodernism. And postmodernism similarly its assumptions are like post-structuralism. It is similar assumptions as post-structuralism, that the meaning is not stable and the reality or laws are not stable, and they have a meaning in a context which is ever changing, and with the change meaning changes. Postmodernism also claims that knowledge and experience is fragmentary, and humans impose meaning and order on them. So there is a debate between beliefs about the construction and control of subjects in context, or the existence of a decision-making human subject. So at this stage, I would like you to consider, think about your own research project and decide what kind of assumptions about the world, meaning, subjectivity, interpretation do you have. What kind of assumptions means what kind of methodology or worldview you have, and what type of meaning, subjectivity, interpretation you are going to do. What assumptions and beliefs underlying the research you are going to undertake. Where along the axis from positivism to postmodernism might your own work lie? And what do you understand now about methodology, methods, ontology, epistemology? It's better you write your own definition of each term and relate it with reference to your own research project. Do any of these matter in terms of your research and its design or processes? And if they do, how do they do it? At this stage, you complete these definitions and then you move on to do the next part of this lecture. Research approaches, and which one of these are yours? Well, research approaches could be, there could be theoretical exploration, there can be reflection on some experience, there is an empirical research, there is an ethnographic research, there is an experimental research, there is a descriptive research, exploratory research, predictive research, explanatory research, practitioner and or action-related research, and creative research. Well, these are the famous ones, and you'll find many shelves full of these methodologies, but you have to decide which one of these is most suitable for your research project, and then you go and read the material which is overwhelmingly available in any library on each of these approaches. At this stage, I would like to explain some of the approaches which were not discussed in the previous section. Well, some of the research discussed in this slide is about, say, descriptive, exploratory, predictive, and explanatory. I would like to explain these four because they were not discussed in our previous section. So take first of all that is a descriptive. What is a descriptive type of research? And what are its aims and functions? Descriptive research aims to find out more about a phenomena and to capture it with detailed information. Descriptive research aims to find out more about a phenomena and to capture it with detailed information. Often the capturing and description is only true for that particular moment or situation, but it still helps us to understand and know more about the phenomena. The description might have to be repeated several times and then further exploratory questions asked about the reasons for its change or stability. In simple words, if your question begins with what, it is the answer would be what is a kind of a descriptive research. Descriptive research tells about a situation or a phenomena, but it doesn't tell about its causes. In educational research, you can take the example of assessment and testing. If there is a report how many people appeared in an exam, in any exam, in a matriculation or in FSC or FA or BA exam, how many students appeared, how many passed and how many failed, and what is their highest marks and the lowest mark. What you will be doing, you will be preparing some of the maybe tables, charts, frequencies. The purpose is to give information, details, but it won't tell you why most of the people couldn't pass the English exam or some other subject. So the purpose of a descriptive research is to describe it, to state it as it is, and not to find reasons for that. As compared to descriptive research, if you look at exploratory kind of research, so what type of question it generates and what type of answers would be given. So exploratory research asks both what and why questions. Means it describes and also gives reason for that. It begins with the question, does, say, X happen? And it is followed by another question, why does X happen? And it sets out using a variety of methods to discover whether what is in question is true or not. So essentially, it explores both simple and complex issues. Exploratory research is commonly used when new knowledge is produced or new knowledge is sought, or certain behavior and the causes for the presentation of symptoms, actions or events need discovering. So whereas descriptive research deals with what type of questions, exploratory research deals encounters with what as well as why type of questions. It not only tells what happened, but also why something happened. Another type of research is explanatory research. Explanatory research is to some extent is like exploratory research, because it also begins with a question why type of questions. It specifically seeks to look at the cause and effect relationships between two or more phenomena or situations or events. It can be immensely helpful when description and simple exploration have come up with a number of variables that confuse rather than clarify the assumptions and hypotheses. Another type of research is a predictive research. And predictive research takes several variables and tries to predict an outcome. It asks what if type of questions. The hypothesis is based on data already collected and considered on knowledge and conceptualization, as well as probably past experience. Predictive research is based on probability and can, for example, be used to predict. Predictive research takes several variables into account. It is based on identification of relationships between variables. So changing one or more variables can, it can be predicted, change the outcome. So you can then deduce the effect of that variable on the outcomes to some extent. Another kind of research, well, let me sum up this one. So we started with the descriptive type of research, what type of questions, exploratory research, what and why, both type of questions. Explanatory is like explanatory, like exploratory, it begins with why type of questions, and especially its focus on cause and effect relationship between two or more phenomena. And then the predictive research, which basically begins with what if type of questions. Another type of research is called an action research. Action research explores and informs practice. What are the practices? It also asks what if type of questions. It is experientially based and usually set up to try and solve a problem or try out a hypothesis that could improve a practical situation. It is popular among the teachers, social workers, medical practitioners and other professionals working with human subjects, carry out different types of action research each time they try to develop an innovation in their work in order to solve a problem and develop a new and useful practice to achieve a developmental practical outcome. It involves collaboration with its subjects and seeks to research practice. Action research focuses on bringing about the change process. Doing research and working on solving a problem at the same time is the key feature of action research. Doing research and working on solving a problem at the same time. We'll discuss action research in a later lecture, but at this time I would like to say that action research is popular in educational research as we discuss in other fields. Its example is that the teacher as an action researcher will be doing both teaching as well as researching on a problem. It usually starts with a problem in a classroom that could be improving the discipline. While teaching, teacher notices there is some discipline problem. There are certain students who are not taking interest. It could be the curriculum, or it could be the overall situation which needs to be addressed and improved. And for that purpose, teacher makes a hypothesis and it tests and comes to certain results, find some findings, and in this way tries to improve the situation. Why it is called action research? Because it is conducted while working, and it is related with the working conditions. Working conditions means the conditions while doing job, some difficulties arise, some problem arise, or some issues arise, and the researcher tries to address them while doing the job. So while the teacher is in action, or maybe doctor in action, and finds and tries to find a reason, a remedy for that problem. So that is a kind of action research. So what should you do? I mean, there are so many methodologies, so many approaches. So what a researcher should do? Whether to use qualitative or a quantitative research, or maybe a mixed methodology, taking the good points of each. Although in this section, in the above section, I describe the different world views that underpin the inductive and deductive type of approaches, and the qualitative and quantitative methods in their service. Nonetheless, many researchers combine them, and by combining means that they take the good aspects of each qualitative or quantitative approach and use in their own research projects or for their dissertations. It is called mixed methods, or it could be when you combine two or more methods, it could be called triangulation. So this lecture has considered research methodologies based on worldviews and looked at the ways in which you might approach your research, the method you might use in relation to the methodology you are using. If you are interested in reading any of these approaches or methods in detail, there is a list for further reading. Well, the first one is Joe al. That is 2005, The Structure of Empirical Knowledge. Its place of publication is Cambridge, MA, and its publisher is Harvard University Press. The second book, that deals with the empiricism, as the title shows, The Structure of Empirical Knowledge. Another book is by Williams M., that is 2001. It is about problems of knowledge, a critical introduction to epistemology. Its place of publication is Oxford, and publisher is Oxford University Press. This book is about what is epistemology. We discussed briefly that epistemology is the science of knowledge. If you are interested to explore this further, this could be a very useful book. Then you have Jacket D, 2002, that is on ontology. The title of the book is On Ontology, and its place of publication is Montreal, that is McGill Queen's University Press is the publisher. So if you are interested in doing some research or to understand the concept of ontology, this is one of the basic books on ontology. Next you have Guba, who basically edited the book in 1990, and the title of the book is The Paradigm Dialogue, American spellings, and its place of publication is London, and the publisher is Sage. It is about the paradigms, and we discussed two main paradigms are the worldviews and assumptions, how to understand the world and whether the world is knowable or it is not knowable. We can't understand it. It's ever changing. So this is a very good book which can help you to understand the paradigms. And the competing are contesting positions between different approaches or paradigms. Then you have Silas S. Scientific Realism, that published in 1999, How Science Tracks the Truth, and this place of publication is London, and the publisher is Routledge. It's about realism. If you want to understand what is realism, it could be a very useful book. Then you have Ashik T, whose book is Readings in the Philosophy of Science, from Positivism to Postmodernism. Its place of publication is Columbus, OH, and it is published by McGraw-Hill. As the title indicates, it is from positivism to postmodernism, and all the topics we have discussed, different methodologies like structuralism, post-structuralism, interpretivism, like postmodernism. All these have been explained in a very reader-friendly manner in this book. So an overview of the book, overview of the methodologies in the book is given. There are readings in the philosophy of science from positivism to postmodernism. Then you have Bausian, PA 2006, The Fear of Knowledge Against Relativism and Constructivism. Fear of knowledge against relativism and constructivism. So we discussed something about constructivism, and its basic postulates are that all knowledge is constructed. It is constructed by human beings in interaction with other human beings and the interaction of mind. So if you want to learn more about constructivism, this is one of the basic books. Then you have Berger, P.L. and Luckman T. 1967, The Social Construction of Reality, a treatise in the sociology of knowledge. It's a place of publication is New York, and the publisher is Anchor. So if you are interested in the constructivism and the social construction of reality, then this is a good book. And at the end you have another book by Zahavi D. 2007. Its title is Subjectivity and Selfhood, how the human beings are used as a subjects and as self, and they relate themselves with the world. So if you are interested and want to explore more on subjectivity and selfhood, investigate in the first person perspective, this is the book to read it, and that is published by MIT Press, and it is published by Cambridge, Cambridge MA in America, and the publishers are the MIT Press. So these are few basic books on which this lecture was based, and if you want to further explore these ideas, these would be helpful in understanding the concepts. We have reached the end, but I would like to draw your attention back to where we started, and especially the summing up of different approaches, and that was what are the research approaches, and you have to define, and you have to take one of them and relate it with your own research. Are you going to do something that is theoretical exploration? it is quite possible that some people generate theories instead of applying theories. So if you are interested in generating a theory, exploring different possibilities, that could be one of the way you can approach your research, and you can base your dissertation on it. Another one is, it can be reflection and experience. You have an experience, you reflect on it, and by reflection means that you come across a problem, you think about it, and you make a plan, you make a hypothesis. You discuss with your supervisor, you discuss with other researchers. If you are a teacher, so you discuss whether other teachers face the same problem. And then you read some books on it. What does the literature or the theories say about that problem? And then you apply that to your own class. So you started with reflection. Another point of reflection is that it is your experience, and experience could be any experience. I'll give you one example, and that example is about, say, you have an experience of teaching a class. Immediately after the class, you need to write down what went wrong, what were the good points which you want to carry on to other lectures, what would you like to avoid. So in this way you are reflecting on your experience, and it takes you to further improve your teaching practice by reflection, thinking, making hypotheses, making changes according to that, and then improving on it. You can apply, you see, empirical research. Empirical research is based on practical experiences. We already discussed in some of our lectures, you can apply ethnographic. An ethnographic type of research is one where you actually become a part of the group you are working on it. So you are not working as an outsider, and there is no distance between the researcher being at a superior position and the researchees on whom you are doing research at a lower or inferior position. So in a classroom situation, it could be instead of observing someone else's class, you become a part of that class, and you pass through the experience as other learners are having an experience, and from that experience you develop your observation and your thinking about the class. Most of these approaches we have studied, like this postmodernism, post-structuralism, structuralism, constructivism, and interpretivism. They are mostly used in humanities. We'll be using some of these, and maybe some other as well, in the interpretation of literary texts. What are the literary approaches, appropriate approaches for the students of literature? These were some of the key concepts about the ontology, epistemology, methodology, methods, and your choice of methodology and method, different competing positions, and the worldview, your assumptions. Okay, so I started with the one quotation by Albert Einstein, and I end with the same one, that if we knew what it was we were doing, it would not be called research, would it? it wouldn't be. So research means that you don't know. If you know something already, there won't be a research. So that was our lecture about research methodologies, an overview of course, and as I said that there would be a number of shelves full of books on any of these approaches, and I also gave you a list at the end if you are interested to explore these ideas more, so you go and get hold of any of those books, and those would be very useful to develop your understanding of these concepts. Thank you very much for listening. See you next time.